That's okay. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming back to is this the sixth one? Yeah, this would be the sixth version or the sixth time that we've looked at Paul Laviolette's papers on subquantum kinetics. And today I'm really excited. I was telling everyone because what we're going to talk about today really is the crux of the technology and exactly how everything works. And by the time we get to the end of this, we're going to describe exactly how Wardenclyffe works. So how Tesla's transmitting tower works. And it all has to do with phase conjugation. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So Brandon, anytime you're ready, we can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. Okay, I'll just read this. I'll just start reading it now. Okay. Phase conjugate mirror. The silvered mirror surface is replaced with a translucent piezoelectric crystal, such as barium titanate,
Okay, so
which
remember we talked about barium titanate before, super important. Yeah.
which has nonlinear optical properties. The phase conjugate mirror, in effect, generates a new set of light waves that have the same angle, wave shape, and phase as the incoming light waves scattered from the target object, but travel in a reverse direction in giving back
Uh,
toward, sorry, what's that word?
moving back.
Moving back toward the target. The effect appears as though time had been made to run backward, causing the incoming scattered light waves to reverse in their tracks.
So I'll just jump in a little bit here and talk about this. So Carmen knows John Hutchison, and my understanding is that John went to work for DARPA a long time ago. And this technology that we're talking about, where the wave can basically appear to, move backwards and reverse on itself, is technology that was developed for Star Wars. Ronald Reagan had the Star Wars project, which was a long time ago, but my understanding is John worked on that project, and this technology, this phase conjugation, to be able to make these waves do this is literally the key to all of the technologies that we're talking about, especially when you're trying to make something levitate. So I'll let you carry on there.
The light stays bottled
Bottle.
up,
Yeah.
confined to a beam that extends among the laser light source. Its illuminated light scattering object and the nonlinear medium of the phase conjugate resonator. Since the light waves have no immediate exit, the energy trapped in this phase conjugate resonator can build up to very high intensities. Holographic amplitude grating. Experiments have shown that the counter-propagating pump beams can self-excite to intensities 60 times that of the in,
Input signal.
input signal beam without any additional energy input.
So this is a sort of like a concept of think about the merry-go-round, I guess, and every time you pump it harder and harder, you can get it to go, faster and faster, essentially, right? It's the same sort of concept. Yeah.
Barium titanate crystal functions as a self-pumped optical phase conjugate mirror.
Okay, boom, that is the ultimate statement right there. So this material, the crystals themselves, allow this phase conjugation to occur within the material. Very important.
If the probe beam were to originate from a certain point, this phase conjugate mirror would reflect a beam that converges back to that point. This principle is used in Star Wars weapons design to track and destroy missiles by using a laser beam.
And this is why this technology has really been not talked about for a very long time. You can understand, you know, that statement that it's basically used to destroy missiles, right? So, yeah.
The
Sorry.
description of the Micro X unit as follows. The Skyvolt vehicle has a high voltage DC power source on board that drives a high power gun diode
Yeah, gun
mounted
diode. Yeah.
within a resonator conduit mounted below the craft. Coherent microwave radiation emitted from the gun diode repeatedly reflects back and forth along the length of this conduit and becomes amplified in voltage. Dielectrics placed in the conduit transform the signal into a sawtooth-shaped waveform. The microwave's radiation from the resonator passes through an iris and radiates downward through a microwave horn. A convex lens focuses the radiation into a beam that shines on the ground, yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
A fraction of this radiation is absorbed in the ground.
Yeah.
And the remaining fraction is scattered upward,
Yeah.
of which a small portion scatters back toward the craft. A second convex microwave lens mounted below the spacecraft intercepts a portion of this scattered radiation, which constitutes the incoming probe beam, and forces it through another iris into another resonator cavity that contains the mixer diode. The mixer diode is essentially a block of material such as barium titanate or same. Or what's that one? Or
Yeah, I think, yeah,
some
other
other substance that has non-linear electric properties and is electrically polarized with high voltage DC. Says microwave wavelengths are about 1,000 times larger than visible wavelengths. The mixer medium need not be transparent or translucent crystal. An amorphous barium titanate ceramic works just as well.
Yep.
Furthermore, a portion of the microwave radiation in the gun diode resonator cavity is converted into the mixer diode cavity, where it enters the mixer diode. This pump beam passes through the mixer diode and reflects from the far end of the resonator cavity. The cavity is designed to have a length that is a whole number multiple of the gun diode wavelength to ensure that resonance is achieved. This establishes two counter-propagating phase locked pump beams within the cavity. The mixer diode electric propagation polarization axis
Is oriented.
is oriented at the proper angle relative to these pump beams, resonantly amplified stationary wave pattern or soliton.
Yeah, so very important trait when we talk about the soliton, which is a standing wave pattern, right? That's really important to all of this technology.
Where was I up to? So relative to these
Soliton,
pump beams,
yeah,
resonantly amplified stationary. So okay, I know it now. Between resonantly amplified stationary wave patterns or soliton between the craft's mixer resonator cavity and the ground, and between the ground and the craft's gun diode resonator, anti-gravity
resonator
resonator
cavity, yeah,
resonator
cavity,
and cavity. This stationary wave in effect behaves as a giant energy capacitor.
very, very important statement right there. Yeah,
The soliton's intensity progressively builds up to a very high value. What's that?
limited only by the
Limited only by absorption energy losses when that microwave beam contacts surfaces that partially absorb the microwave radiation. With this method, it should be possible to lift a craft even the size of an aircraft carrier.
quite the statement, right?
Yeah. This phase-locked soliton beam could induce a gravitational force on the craft that was opposed to the Earth's downward pull, thereby reducing the craft's weight and causing it to levitate.
Yeah,
Sawtooth electric potential waves produce gravity, like thrust effects. This electrogravitic coupling phenomena is also a key prediction of subquantum kinetics.
yeah, wow.
Spacecraft could maintain proper pitch stability by using 3 microwave beam generators spaced from one another so as to produce a tripod-like beam arrangement. In summary, by using phase conjugate technology on craft, would be able to build up a resonant energy beam between itself and the ground that would have a cumulative power for in
Far,
excess,
far in
far in
excess.
excess of that which the craft would be feeding into it. This resonant amplification effect is referred to as field-induced soliton phenomena.
Okay, that is super important because in all the black projects and in Area 51 and everything, that is actually what they call it, a field-induced soliton phenomena. Yeah. And Brandon, you're doing great with my horrible writing. It gets worse and worse as we go along, but you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay, great. They were using a 100 gigahertz oscillator for their propulsion beam, one that operated in the W microwave band. It is quite likely that such a phase conjugate propulsion system would emit sound, since piezoelectric media physically move and oscillate when they are excited by electromagnetic waves. In fact, such materials are used in telephone speakers and sonic alarms. If such a craft was to hover up and down at 15 centimeters per second on its 100 gigahertz microwave beam, the fundamental harmonic of its beat frequency would have a very low value of around 100 hertz at an upward velocity of 30 meters per second, 67 miles per hour. The craft would be generating
The
20,000.
craft would be generating. Yeah.
The craft would be generating a 20,000 hertz beat frequency. UFOs have generally been observed to radiate electromagnetic waves in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz range. Hence, the UHF, is it VHF?
UHF, yeah. So ultra high
UHF
frequency, yeah.
band, hence the UHF band. If the craft was to transmit a 1 gigahertz maser signal and travel upward at a velocity of 30 meters per second, its beat frequency would be felt in the 10, is that 16 or 10? 10
Felt
watt
in the low frequency audio range.
sorry, in the low frequency audio range at 200 hertz. In summary, the development of microwave field propulsion technology combines these areas of research.
Three areas of research.
Combines these three
areas
the three areas of research. A, research into production of high power microwave beams. B, research into metamaterials that exhibit a negative index of refraction or strong electric or magnetic resonances. The key.
Well, I just underlined that and said this is the key right here. So that's just like after. So it's resonance at the microwave frequencies.
At the microwave frequencies. And C, research into microwave phase conjugation. With the proper engineering development, it should be possible to produce a vehicle capable of free levitation. Reported tests of a high power maser system capable of delivering a 2.86 gigahertz pulsed microwave beam having a peak power of 65 megawatts. The system used an SLAC, is that SLAC?
Yeah.
SLAC 5045 linear 5045 linear accelerator
klystron
tube functioned as a free electron laser.
Yeah, so they're using tubes to do this, and this Skyvault this is really old, right? So a lot of this stuff is from the end of the 50s and maybe 1960, right? This is Skyvault was a very long time ago,
and was powered by a modulator unit developed by the Titan Beta. The unit developed 3.5 microsecond pulses at a rate of 100 pulses per second.
180 pulses per
Sorry,
second.
180 pulses per second. Hughes aircraft are the world's leaders in electrogravitics.
Okay, that's a huge statement right there, because nobody really knows about Hughes Aerospace and whatnot. And I'm just starting to learn quite a bit about it. There's a lot going on there. So now this is the exciting part, because this uh, we're going to go back to Tesla now, and we're going to go back to Wardenclyffe and explain how Wardenclyffe works now that we know about this phase conjugation and the soliton. So this is really fantastic stuff right here.
Tesla's magnifying transmitters also functioned as phase conjugate resonators and was most likely known to him uh, uh, most likely known to him. The
Yep.
Wardenclyffe Tower was the largest of his generators. The central part of his sorry, the central part
Of
of
its
its
resonator.
resonator the central part of its resonator consisted of a large flat spiral coil mounted horizontally and shielded within
And yep, shield.
a
Yep.
68-foot diameter mushroom shaped dome electrode. This whole structure being
Perched.
perched 187 feet above the ground at the top of a wooden tower. The center of the coil was electrically connected to the dome electrode to form a resonator. Power inductively supplied to the coil would surge in resonance between the coil and the dome electrode, pulsing the dome with extremely high voltages. Dome electrode consisted of a honeycomb array of 1 foot diameter parabolic shells whose small curvature radii facilitated ionization of the surrounding atmosphere. Thus, when electrified, the entire dome world
Would
would,
have
thus, when electrified, the entire dome would have enveloped in an iron halo the nitric oxide gases that would have
formed.
formed in this halo have electric properties that are very nonlinear and would have served as an ideal phase conjugating medium. We may
Deduce.
deduce then that this iron halo would have phase conjugated the tower's resonant oscillations, allowing it to function as a phase conjugate resonator and to generate field powers far in excess of the power used to run it. Since the dome electrode would have been radiating longitudinal waves to the Earth, ionization, the Earth's ionosphere,
Yep.
an immense soliton would have formed between the halo and the ionosphere. And since the halo would have phase conjugated the waves returning from the ionosphere, the tower would have been able to draw on energy cohered from a vast region of space.
So I just want to say that I know that I talked to Dr. James Schwartz, who told me that he was a good friend of Paul's. And when Paul wrote Secrets of Anti-Gravity technology. James spent hours talking to Paul, but what they're talking about mostly is this right here, this phase conjugate technology that allows us to do everything. It allows us to have anti-gravity. It allows us to create free energy.
Just
And
explain what you mean by for everyone. Just explain what you mean by phase conjugation, just simply, just in a simple.
phase conjugation is when you're using resonance, so the wave will bounce back and forth and back and forth, and it will build up and build up and build up and build up. But you need these materials. Either you need barium titanate or something like it. There are other materials, but Tesla, in his absolute brilliance, actually used the air, the atmosphere. You know, he created the gas that allowed him to do this, and then he was able to create this giant soliton standing wave between the tower and the atmosphere. So he was absolutely on it with all of this, and he knew. The other thing is, so this is a tank circuit, and a tank circuit needs to be tuned. You can build it and you can design it, but when you fire it up, you need to tune it. It's like a lot of electronics. So what he did in his brilliance again, and I actually remote viewed this because I've tried to go back and see what he was doing with stuff. He had these tanks of seawater, a whole bunch of tanks of seawater. And everyone says, well, that was like a battery, because you can make a seawater battery. But that's absolutely not what he was doing. Seawater has a certain amount of capacitance, and he was raising and lowering the levels of the tanks to tune Wardenclyffe. So that's how he tuned it. Because back in the day, even now, it's very difficult to get very high voltage capacitors, and then you need a whole bunch of values to put them in to see if it's right. No, this one doesn't work. Let's try a different one. In his brilliance, he actually used seawater to tune this thing, right? So absolutely brilliant. So that's why at the bottom it goes OMG, like, oh my God, right? His absolute brilliance. And Brandon,
I'll show
my
you the last
writing
page.
the last page of my writing gets worse and worse. So we'll just go slow and we'll figure it out.
These magnifying
Transmitter,
transmitter emitted, transmitter emitted. So these magnifying
probably should
transmitter
say
emitted
transmitters, probably,
a
yeah.
repeating um
Series,
series of very high voltage shock
shock,
fronts
huh?
from their dome, their
From their dome-shaped
their
electrode.
dome voltage, sorry, from their um
Go back.
dome shaped electrode.
Yeah,
Their electric field profile
was
was sawtooth shaped with very sharp rise in potential and a subsequent
yeah,
um
more gradual
more
decay.
gradual decay, and the field gradients
Yeah,
were oriented longitudinally in the direction of wave propagation.
yeah.
Uh,
I think it's when
uh,
operating this yeah,
wave would
wave
gradually
propagation, and
build
then when operating his transformer, the
when operating his transformer would gradually build up an field immense field potentials approaching 100 million volts as a result of the cumulative effect of the repeating pulse cycles. The progressive amplification of these phase conjugated waves is an example of what we earlier referred to as the field-induced soliton phenomena.
Yep, so there it is again, right? That's the term.
The high voltage that accumulated as a result of these repeating waves would have been apparent as a glowing luminescence. Tesla radiant energy effects grew with time. The radiant electric effects were additive or
And cumulative.
additive and accumulative.
Yep. And so, yeah, so that's, we'll stop there. We've got three more shows to go. So there's 30 more pages to go. But do you guys have any questions, Amber or
I'm good.
Yeah, so you sort of get the understanding of where we're kind of going with this. It's all basically the same technology, and it's field-induced soliton phenomena is what engineers will call it, right? Especially in
Right.
the black projects. But it is all something that was really Tesla's deal. So with Wardenclyffe, he had figured all this out, and we're still trying to catch up to him, essentially, literally, right? So it's really cool to be able to bring all this to you guys today. And we've got three more, so there's 30 more pages to go. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about all of this in the next one. I just split these up in 10 pages at a time, so we kind of stop and go as necessary there. So thanks everyone for having a look today, and we'll see you next time. And you can probably stop the recording.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here.